to another Let's Play Them Gays presentation. We got a treat for you today. This here game is called Drivin Route 66.
Ford Skyliner retractable hardtop Fairlane 500. In 1957, Ford, locked in a mortal sales battle with General Motors, introduced the third ever retractable hardtop convertible and stole, if only for a year, bragging rights to the title of most cars sold that year. The idea of a retractable hardtop, an awkward in design but not concept marriage between a convertible and hardtop, had been tried before with negligible success. Ford should be credited with the only commercially successful venture into this engineering marvel that continues to hold a certain fascination for car designers to this day. Witness the Mitsubishi Spider. The idea is to have a car that looks and acts like a normal hardtop, but with the push of a button and a host of mechanical clamoring, the roof loosens itself, the trunk lifts, and the roof glides into the trunk, transforming the car into a seamless convertible. Ford kept the retractable hardtop alive for 3 model years from 1957 to 1959 before discontinuing the Fairlane convertible. (1958) Scarab Sports Racer. Built by Lance Reventlow, son of Barbara Hutton, the 1958 Scarab Racer was positively dominant in West Coast racing circles. Reventlow was a wealthy young racer who had little success racing a Cobra in 1957. He decided to use his considerable wealth to build his own car. Armed with little knowledge about race cars, Reventlow combined a pumped Corvette engine with a Halobrand quick-change rear end to form the car of his dreams. For 1 year, the Scarab was everyone else's nightmare, as the powerful racer set new track records every time it hit the track. Armed with success, Reventlow took on the world in 1959 and took his Scarab to Formula One racing with nowhere near the same success as he had club racing. The project ran out of steam shortly thereafter, but Scarab remains legendary and the car is valuable.
The victory string of the unbeaten British Lister Jaguars is on the line as they battle with America's fastest sports cars for the Governor's Cup at Montgomery, New York. The top contenders to topple the Englishmen will be the Chevrolet-powered Scarabs owned by Lance Reventlow. Lance from Beverly Hills, California will join with business partner Chuck Day at the controls of the Scarabs. Lovely Marilyn Van Derber, Miss America of 1957, highlights a colorful pre-race parade while the boys in the pits make last-minute adjustments. 17 anxious sons of Mercury are ready as the cars position themselves for the start. The green flag goes down and the scramble for the silver mug put up by Governor Harriman begins. A treacherous S-curve demands nerves of steel and spectacular driving as the crowd of 10,000 is kept on its feet. The Lister Jaguars have taken the lead as the race moves into the crucial laps. The Scarabs are in relentless pursuit. Ed Crawford in one of the Jaguars loses precious seconds when his brakes fail and he runs into a safety barrier. The Jaguars' lead dwindles as the Scarabs move closer in a great effort to get out in front. Chuck Day in car number 15 goes to the lead on the final turn and begins to pour it on. Chuck is all by himself as he blazes a path to an upset victory in the final straightaway, a full 10 seconds ahead of the Lister Jaguar. Day averaged 77.1 miles an hour over the tricky course and is a happy man as he's congratulated by his partner Lance Ravetlo, owner of the Scarab.
(1959) Edsel Corsair convertible. The Edsel, named after Henry's son, was the right car at the wrong time. Ford spent $250 million doing market research and preparation for a new division of the company. But by the time the car actually hit the market, the economy had changed just enough to send Edsel into an almost immediate tailspin. The Corsair was graced with the famous cat-sucking-a-lemon grille and had little to offer in the way of innovations. The Corsair was essentially a retrimmed Ranger, which itself was a car with an identity crisis, according to Ford officials. It was a crisis that Ford and Edsel were never quite able to overcome, and the company shut its doors just 2 years after beginning production. The 1959 Dodge Royal Lancer Coupe. As it was with the rest of the industry, 1958 was a hard year for Dodge, with total sales figured limited to 138,000, just barely enough to beat out Cadillac. The Lancer was a good but not exceptional seller for Dodge, with its relatively mild-mannered styling and austere grille design. The Royal Lancer could be purchased with a D500 V8 engine option, which made an impressive 260 horsepower at 4,400 RPM. The D500 option also included an updated suspension package that helped vault the Royal Lancer to the top of the field in handling tests. In 1959, while the rest of the auto industry was going berserk with tail fins, Dodge was content to concentrate on the interior. All 59 Dodge models had swivel seats available, a semi-bucket that would swing out and allow the driver and passenger to get in and out of the car with ease. The 1964 Pontiac GTO convertible. First of the true muscle cars, the 64 GTO, Gran Turismo Omologato, started a legendary trend in the auto industry. While the base model GTO drop top was a fairly mild-mannered car with the stock 335 horsepower V8, the mood changed quickly after a quick run through the options book. For a total of $3,800, the GTO transformed into a car with world-class performance. The options included a 389 V8 floor shifter, dual exhaust, stiffer springs and shocks, quicker steering, better tires, bigger brakes, larger radiator, and limited slip differential. Car and Driver magazine compared the low-cost Pontiac GTO with the $20,000 Ferrari model by the same name, with favorable results, and declared the Pontiac one of the best bargains of the day.
The 65 Pontiac GTO. It's the swingin'est car. The 65 Pontiac GTO. It's the swingin'est car. (1965), the year of the quick wide tracks.
The 1953 Studebaker Starliner Coupe. By 1953, Studebaker was already cycling out of its most famous bullet nose line of cars. The Loewe design, in 1953 the cars were actually being designed by Robert E. Bork, was coming to an end, and a new look was commissioned for the 1953 show cars. But Studebaker management was so enthralled with the shape proposed by Bork that they bought the design as a production model, and the bullet nose gave way to the clam digger, which was much lower and more modern looking. Nevertheless, the ever-increasing cost of production and competing with the Big Three slowly forced Studebaker out of the financial wherewithal to redesign every model, and the company slowly declined until 1966, when Studebaker finally closed for good. The 1948 Studebaker Commander Starliner Coupe. Because Studebaker employed an outside firm, Loewe Associates, to do its design work, the company was in a unique position to get a leg up on the competition for new and innovative designs starting in 1945, while other companies were still reeling from the post-war conversion. Although the 1948 Commander was still 2 years short of Studebaker's famous bullet nose design, it was considerably more modern than other models of the era. The short hood and ornate grille were trademarks of the Studebaker. Loewe designed the flow-through fenders that gave the cars a modern, streamlined look, and large greenhouses that gave the car its upright look. Because of Studebaker's diminishing status in the post-war automotive world, the company's jump on the industry in 1945 did not last. The 1955 Plymouth Belvedere. The year 1955 was one of dramatic change at Chrysler. It was the end of the company's practical yet unattractive designs and the start of the legendary designer Virgil Exner's reign at Chrysler. Exner was known mostly for his dramatic styling revisions, but the 1955 Belvedere received performance updates to match. A new polyspherical head V8 made 167 horsepower in its standard form, with a 4-barrel carb and dual exhausts. The 55 Belvedere was graced with Exner-designed flair in the way of a dash-operated push-button automatic transmission, the first ever air conditioning system, and power windows. The model was available in both hardtop and convertible configurations, and with 6, and 8-cylinder engines. Yet perhaps the most marked departure from the Chrysler's past models was that the Belvedere was advertised as, quote, a great new car for the young at heart. The 1969 Plymouth GTX Hemi. The numbers tell the story for the GTX. The mild-looking car was capable of running 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, running the quarter mile in 14 seconds, had a top speed of over 130 miles per hour, and made 425 horsepower through a 4-speed gearbox. The Hemi-equipped GTX was one of the first factory Q-ships, a quiet-looking car that would leave almost anything else on the street breathing its exhaust. The GTX, along with a special fraternity of cars like the GTO, Judge, and the Superbird, became the cars upon which the legend of the muscle cars was formed. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Roadrunner. Unlike the GTX, the Roadrunner started life as a fairly bland sedan. A handful of hop-up parts and then famous Hemi motor transformed the Roadrunner into a road burner. The car started life in 1968 as a sporty, economical car. But as the muscle car ante was raised by Pontiac with the GTO and Ford with the Mustang GT350, Chrysler threw its 425 horsepower Hemi into the Roadrunner and vaulted its once mundane car into a stunning street rod with unprecedented acceleration figures. The 1953 Buick Special. Buicks of the early 1950s had a distinct wing-shaped design that helped them wrestle away market share from its nearest volume competitor, Plymouth. The Special was the workhorse of the 3-car lineup that also included the Super and the Roadmaster. The Special was a tidy design and was priced for the masses. As the model progressed through the decade, a sports model and convertible were added to the lineup. Buicks of that era were distinguished by their smooth, if performance-sapping, Dynaflow drive automatic transmissions. The 1953 Special, which was the golden anniversary model year for Buick, had the added benefit of a new overhead valve engine, 12-volt electrical system, and power steering. The 1951 Nash Ambassador Super. The year 1951 was the best in Nash's short history in terms of sales, and not coincidentally, the start of a very different area of interest for the Kenosha, Wisconsin-based manufacturer. The Ambassador was the top of the line for Nash with the large wheelbase Statesman-style car boasting a large displacement L6 engine that made 115 horsepower. But the Ambassador would only last another 6 model years as Nash began a campaign to build a line of small cars. As Nash conceded defeat to the Big Three in the mid to large sedan segment of the market, the small company tried to reach success with the comparatively tiny Nash Metropolitan. Unfortunately, the small Nash only succeeded for 8 years. The 1957 Chevrolet Bel-Air Sports Coupe. Both Ford and Chrysler had completed redesigned cars for this model year, so Chevy's 57 Bel-Air was left fighting some strong competition and fared reasonably well. The Bel-Air Sports Coupe was very quick in its class and could summon its 270 horses to go 0 to 60 in under 10 seconds and dash through the quarter mile in 17.5 seconds. The strong motor and reliability made the Bel-Air a favorite among NASCAR racers in Daytona. The Bel-Air was the class of the field during the 1957 Speed Weeks in Daytona, taking the top 3 spots in the Class 4 Flying Mile and nearly swept Class 5, taking 33 of 37 places awarded. The 1966 Corvette 427 convertible. The mid-60s saw a tremendous growth in the performance and speed of the Corvette. In 1965, the Corvette already made 425 horsepower from a 398 V8 engine. Despite that impressive figure, Chevrolet increased the displacement to 427 for the 1966 model year and added a host of mechanical upgrades to help bridle the awesome power of the new Corvette. Stiffer springs and shocks, as well as a stronger clutch, were all added to the 66, and performance increased accordingly. The Corvette could now go 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds, and would top out at over 140 miles per hour thanks to a taller final drive ratio.
Alright guys, that was part 1 of this series. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see the next one and the next one. And we're also going to be going on Route 66, exploring very interesting places along the way, diners and all kinds of things in many cities in many different states. So like this video and stay tuned for the next one. See you on Route 66!